sleep.
Yeah.
I promise you'll be fine. Like, you'll be better. You'll feel a lot better.
Yeah, man. Even when they're 2.5, sometimes they don't understand that, hey, sleep will help you right
Yeah.
now.
They don't
I
understand
know
that when
you're
they're
saying
9
you don't
either.
want it. I promise you it'll help. I promise.
Yeah, welcome to Across the Table After the Fact, everybody. Not sure how much of that beforehand stuff's going to make it into the edit because this is not about parental advice and children, but that's a big part of all our lives right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, kids are a big reason why we started this to begin
That's
with.
very true.
That's true.
Very true. Honestly, though, we haven't done one of these in a long time. Officially, all three of us talking about the actual
The
campaign.
podcast
Yeah.
debriefing.
We've enjoyed the other ones. We've enjoyed talking about D&D, but we have not all three been together in, 3 months?
My last day in Statesboro was the 3rd
Of
February. The very beginning of February is when I
Okay.
left. So,
So maybe January was when we...
maybe. Feels like it's been longer than that. But we're all in person because Michael and his family had to come pick up a car that was being repaired.
yeah, when you
And-
drive really late at night, especially in the South, look out for deers, people.
That can serve as our
Not-
adventuring
there's-
advice
there's
for
our
the,
safety
for the
not,
day.
advice.
not a good time.
Instead of adventuring advice for our across the table, we can give real life advice.
Yeah.
Well, and that was
Be careful driving late at
when
night in
Holland
the South.
and Odessa were going up to, they were moving up, quote unquote,
Yeah.
that night, and that got delayed because of the deer.
Yep.
Good
Yep. Because,
grief.
also, guys, moving's a ton of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Well, funny enough, so we just picked up the car today, like literally an hour before this. But there's still some deer hair in the front right tire.
Oh, no!
And I was
In the
like,
tire?
hey, sweetheart, come check this out.
I'm going to go fix one thing. I think there's a fan running downstairs, and I can hear it.
Can
Like
you hear it?
Like
No.
the bathroom fan.
Dude, it's so loud. How can you not?
All right, now I got to do it without my headphones. Yep, it's bathroom fan.
It's our sound engineer for us, people.
I live here. I test all the spaces.
I literally cannot.
I can't hear
Hear it.
anything. Yeah, man. So when are we killing Tam?
He has to go out in a blaze of glory.
Yeah.
So pick a fight that you guys can't win, and he'll be the one to jump in front of the bullet. There's some stuff with Tam's backstory that I'm hoping to find opportunities to bring in over the next few sessions that I'm excited about, and I hope will give both y'all some opportunities to
yeah.
play off of each other in more interesting ways.
I'm trying to think about what our listeners right now know about both of our backstories.
Yeah.
Because I know with Tam, there's been a little bit of background as far as like how long he's been in the service and things like that. But yeah, and then I know with Lycan, especially once you introduced Vincent, which it's so much fun to play off of him, man. I love it. But ever since you brought him in, I think our listeners have heard a little bit more about Wandering City. And clearly, I've alluded to smuggling quite a bit, but
My thing with Vincent, since you brought him up, and I'm out of breath coming up downstairs, you think you're in good shape until you carry a child up and down stairs, or you come upstairs to read a book, and then you have to take long,
Yeah.
deep breaths. There has been no signal from Vincent at all that he is a bad person.
hey, man.
It has been...
No
It is-
signal at all?
It is so funny to me. Ben, as the player, thinks it's hilarious because like there have been
Yeah.
no mixed signals because everything bad he has said, Lycan has said something similar or exactly the same.
That's fair.
So Tam's like, okay, weird pirate tiefling people. This is just their deal.
Yeah.
But also, it's like, well, he hates him so much, and Tam is going to be on Lycan's side by default, up to a reason. But he's going to start asking, in the most recent episode, he finally poked Bergen and was like, "Hey, dude, what's your deal with this cauldron?"
Yeah.
Unless Vincent has a real heel turn moment, it's going to be like, "Hey, Lycan, what's your deal? Like, you don't have to like him, but
Yeah.
what's your deal?"
I think where we left it last time we talked about it in campaign, in canon with it, is that I think I equated him to like a Nepo baby. Like,
Yeah.
the admiral's kid who's just like, I'm going to be admiral one day
That's
and
true.
you can't do anything about it, blah, 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 blah.
So
And then Tam was like, oh, okay, I've known
Yeah.
people like that in the service. Okay.
And when Tam asked Vincent about it, I asked for a one-word answer, and he can't do those. It was like jealousy. He's like, okay, some background colors are being filled in, but yeah, until until he has the heel turn moment or
Mm.
something bad happens, it's just hilarious to
Yeah.
watch.
It's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I definitely think that as you guys uncover more about the Wandering City, maybe if you even visit there
Mm-hmm.
in game, yeah, you'll see that. I mean, in a sense, Lycan's family are the workmanlike henchmen
Mm.
of one of the crime families, but Vincent's daddy is the head of a different crime family.
Do you know who my father is?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes, sort
very
of like
much.
that. Yeah. So, I want to just go into all the different crime families and world building that I've done, but we should wait
Until it's actually
until you
happened
guys
in the
come
campaign.
and see it for yourselves.
One thing that I feel like we could mention very briefly that our listeners might be interested in is the fact that Lycan is a tiefling. He was not born to a tiefling family.
You did
and-
hint at that, yeah.
And then Vincent is from a full tiefling family. And Lycan's tree that he falls under is kind of in opposition to Vincent. So there's
Yes.
also a lot of
The families, you mean, or
tiefling-
the type of tiefling?
the families are kind of against each
Oh.
other.
Yeah, without
Oh,
going.
so you weren't a lieutenant of his family?
No.
Oh,
I'm a tiefling born to a non-tiefling family
right.
that is in opposition to a tiefling
That all
family,
the
which causes a lot more
Oh.
stuff.
So you were born to a family of Celtics fans, but you
Yes.
look like a Lakers
Yep.
fan, and Vincent
Born
is,
with
Vincent,
LeBron's face as a birthmark.
Vincent is a Lakers fan.
We need to put up a
Got it.
poll to see how many of our listeners, follow.
I wonder what the Venn
NBA
diagram
or-
overlap is of NBA fans and
Yeah.
our podcast listeners.
I saw something today. It was somebody making fun of how there's no rivalries anymore in sports because
Mhm.
nobody's allowed to hate each other. There's all these rules that stop it from happening.
Yeah.
And the grumpy old man in me is like, that's true. Yeah, you should be allowed to hate who you want to hate in
Oh, there's
sports.
teams that I hate.
Yeah.
Oh, they're
But the
there are
players,
rivalries in my heart
right? But the players on the teams that you love don't necessarily
That's
hate
true.
that team anymore
because
Like,
it's their
that's the-
job.
right? That's where that's the problem. It's
Yeah.
like oh, I lost to this team. Instead of wanting to beat them next
Yeah.
year, it's like I'll just go play with them.
Yeah.
Well, there's also the whole conspiracy theory about how like a lot of the professional sports fall under the entertainment
Oh
umbrella, and everyone's like everything's rigged, everything's staged, it's for entertainment.
There are moments where it's like, my tinfoil hat's getting
Yep.
a little closer to the head.
Yeah. The very brief outline of the Wandering City, which I think that both Tam and which Tam would know, is that it's ruled by criminals, and there's 4 big crime families, and they all kind of hate each other, but also,
Specialize in different
Yeah.
illegal entities as well.
yeah,
See, then my thought would be that they would all somewhat get along. And maybe because I've world built it this way in other places, like, oh, okay, we're the robber baron family, but we can't ship stuff to save our lives. We're not good at smuggling. So we have to at least be civil to the smuggling family, even if we're constantly trying to backstab them. But that may not be where we are. I don't know.
Well, I think that what you just described is why they are sort of sneakily, in underhanded ways, trying to sabotage each other, and not in outright open warfare.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, the complicated relationship between Vincent and Lycan is fruit of that specific situation.
Yeah, I had never made the connection that they were in opposing families.
Yeah.
I always thought it was that you were an underling of his family. Therefore, nepotism is generally frowned upon in most cases. But if you already hated his family anyway, it's like, oh, that makes sense.
And also like being raised as children, even depending on how very different our childhoods were, we were pit against each other a good bit.
Yeah.
And Vincent is good at what he does.
I imagine Vincent is the type of person, and in some ways his roles have like really played this out.
Yes.
Where like he's
they
just
have-
naturally like everything's kind of naturally easy for
Yeah.
him. Whereas I imagine Lycan, from what you've talked about, from what we've talked about, I feel like Lycan is like a hard scrapple. He feels like he has earned every skill, every scar, every accomplishment he has had to hard, drawn out fight for every inch that he's been able to take.
Yeah.
And trusts no one. That's been
It's coming around.
Yeah, it's coming around. And it's been funny too, because we've talked about this a lot. How I think we both enjoyed that fight argument that we had.
Mm-hmm.
Me as a person still suffering secondhand cringe. I was like, oh, I don't like that. I didn't. But it was fun.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of our listeners actually really liked that moment. Like they thought it was like an authentic, good moment.
It felt it was
I get what you're saying, because I think there is a piece to even when you get heated playing around,
mm-hmm.
your heart rate just goes up a little bit more.
Oh, my heart was
You
pounding.
can feel the heat a little bit, but at the end of the day, I was just kind of like, these are our characters.
Oh yeah, I mean it was.
And also, like, I just thought even when I re-listened to it recently, because I'm re-listening from the beginning, because at one point it dawned on me, I don't think we actually know all the items and the amount of money we have after seeing the Gilded Lady. And literally already, I listened to an episode and I was like, I didn't hear that we got 100 gold there. Like, what? I was like, that's completely missing. So, but yeah, re-listening to that fight episode or whatever, I did think it made a ton of sense based on the different worldviews
Mm-hmm.
that Tam and Lycan both had. And it kind of like came to a head of like, yeah, I don't really trust you yet. And that was enough for Tam to just be like, we've had each other's backs. Like, what do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've served with men that have died with me and things like that. And I'm just kind of like, well, I've been alone for years.
Yeah.
So it felt really good to kind of get it out of the way that early on too. So
I think what's funny too to me, and I'm probably self-aware, I'm the one of the three of us that argues the most in the real world, because I'll argue with anybody about anything because it's fun. But once it seems genuine, like I don't want to hurt people's feelings about something that they genuinely care about, unless they're wrong, in which case.
For those of you listening, if you want to see what we're talking about, comment on what your favorite movie is and why, and Ben might respond to you.
Wrong, tolerable, wrong. But so even acting, improv, whatever you want to call that, that was very different for me. And so being generally someone who does not like genuine conflict, that's why it was so uncomfortable for me, because that was just personality bleed. It's like I was obviously not mad at Michael. You were not mad at me.
No.
We laughed about it immediately, but at the same time, it was like, oh, I don't like conflict, and I'm making him be the conflicting person.
I think we made our DM feel a certain way as well with Bergen. So I'm a little curious to hear from you. Like, at other tables that you've DM'd, have you had that before? Like, how are you feeling?
So part of me was like, obviously, I knew somehow Lycan was not going to leave the party. But there were points where I was like, how can we make it make sense that Lycan would stay in the party? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that was what
Dope, man. The way he described it, I'm like, yeah. I was like, if we ever even do a different campaign, I would be like, hey, can we introduce sand elves into this?
For some reason, I think of them as Super Saiyans in my head. I don't know why, but maybe it's... Anyway, totally derailed that.
There's definitely some overlap. The sort of warlike nature of the
I imagine the
Saiyans.
hair going straight back into spikes.
I mean, with how windy the desert gets, it certainly can.
Maybe that's it, because aren't the Gerudo in Ocarina of Time, don't they have big spiky hair like that?
Yeah.
Which is funny, because I've actually never, ever played a Zelda game.
None of them?
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Yeah, none of them. I feel like I missed a big something there.
There's still time.
I do want to play the new ones on the Switch. They look awesome.
I don't like them at all.
Really?
They are so different from the Zelda games that have come before. They're very much...
Yeah, they're open world.
They're very open world. There's a lot of crafting involved, which is fun, but I don't want to not be able to play half of a game because I didn't craft the right kind of pants. Like David, literally, you have to craft a certain kind of pants so you don't freeze to death to get to the next point. That's fine, but it's not as straightforward. There's a lot more just open world. Just, you want to goof off and never advance the story? That's fine. I can't do that in video games.
Open world type stuff.
I'm just enough older than all of that stuff, so
Yeah.
I missed a lot of those games. They had to be done very, very well for me to like them, and so the two new Zeldas, I'm not a big fan.
Ben's controversial takes to almost universally beloved games.
Yep.
Y'all are
Ocarina,
hearing
no,
it here.
I will
Started
fight
off
you-
with I've never played one, ended with you're not missing anything on the new ones, man.
I'll be the opposing voice. I like the new ones.
But see, Ocarina
But I
of
like
Time
open
is
world
one of the
games,
best
too.
video games ever made.
That's
in
what
my
I've
opinion.
heard.
Like, that is-
At some point, I need to go play it. I need
It
to
is
figure out
so
how to
good.
go play it. I'm assuming it's not on the computer yet or something.
Yeah, you can get what are they called? Not mods, not STLs. That's printer. What is it called?
Ports.
No, there's another all of those words make sense, and like I would understand if you called it that. But what do they call it?
Emulator.
Emulator. Yes.
Nice.
ROMs. There it is.
ROMs. Yep,
Emulator,
that's
yes.
those.
They make
Yep.
a 64 ROM emulator, and I definitely have a USB N64 controller that we use on the regular.
Yeah. Anyway, so you'd love to play a Sand Elf. I'm sure we can make that happen at some point.
Now that we're done with our
And we're
Nintendo
back.
plug,
Yep.
which they don't need anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I'm sorry. Yeah, had you experienced player characters being
So
at
there-
odds to that degree
Yes.
before?
Yes and no. Yes, in that there have been, I've been DMing off and on since around 2016, 2017. There have been player characters that had big conflict, but I would say this is definitely the first time where it kind of caught me by surprise. Like, I didn't necessarily expect it to happen. I mean, there's this one campaign that I ran where, like, during character creation, I made everyone, all of their players, I was like, hey, I want you to come up with your character. I want you to come up with a secret and like tell just me, the DM. Don't tell any other players. And it led to some really cool moments, including essentially an enemy general finding out one of the player's secrets and using that to blackmail the player character into essentially betraying the party.
And it was still a secret from the party.
And it was still a secret from the party.
Nice.
And it was like a sick moment. It led to some conflict, but it was one that I was like completely, it was kind of planned out, you know? And so this was not the first time that I had conflict, but it was definitely the least like
scheduled.
Scheduled, least expected maybe.
Yeah.
Like it definitely took me aback a little bit at the sort of way that y'all's characters like interacted with each other. But it was a great moment. And yeah, I think that Bergen he was a little bit the voice of the DM. He was a little bit me being like, all right, we need to keep this podcast together. Like, I don't want people to reroll characters.
This is a team sport, you guys.
But it was awesome. It was really good. And it led to, I think, some really good. I think that moment was the moment that led to both Lycan and Tam's like biggest growth that we've seen so far, like as characters in the story.
I think for Tam, a lot of it, I've kind of joked about this, is that he's getting his eyes opened to things that are different. And so that was just another time. It's like, oh, people have had different experiences. They're not going to think about things the same way that you are. And he had a passing like head knowledge of that. But it's like, oh, this person that I'm beginning to care about and beginning to view as a friend has a distinctly different history than I do.
Yeah.
And that's going to inform things. It's like, oh, yeah, we can't just pass over that. Like, we're not just going to argue about it one time, or maybe we are going to argue about it one time, but that's going to be hard. Like, for Tam to be able to understand that and let it slide, he has to work very hard to let that go.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like, Captain, you've trusted this guy. Why are you not trusting it? Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. Tam's going to have to work very hard to see it from Lycan's perspective and be careful and trusting of Lycan, but also try to play the middleman. Like, sorry, he didn't mean that. He had a rough childhood. Can we please still stay here for the night? Whenever that's going to come up and happen. That's one thing that I tend to do with my characters anyway, is I know I've mentioned this to you guys before. I tend to want to be kind of not like filler background, but I'm very content to play a character that fills in the gaps where, Michael, you tend to have very well thought out, and I really want to play this kind of character.
Yeah.
There are certain things I'll play, but we talked before, I'll play anything as long as it's fun. I don't have classes or something. I'm like, no, I'll never do that, or I would hate to play this. And so that kind of falls into the way that I build characters and backstories. It's like, I don't really, I'll build stuff as we go along, but I'm not going to come into it with a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
And so it can be helpful sometimes, but it's also like, oh yeah, how would he feel about that? Let's think about that now.
Yeah. Like in our first campaign, first off, in our first campaign, I loved the dynamic between y'all's characters. I think it was like as close to perfect as I could like think of as these two guys who are very different, but who just become really good friends over the course of like shared battles together. But yeah, like even in the character creation, Ben, I'm pretty sure you sent me like the character background, quote unquote, was like a list of like 3 or 4 bullet points.
Yeah,
and
he
you were
did
like,
this, he did that.
do whatever you want with that. And I'm like, all right, cool. And whereas Mazul, you and I definitely spent a lot more time fleshing out. I mean, I feel like my, almost like 1 or 2 pages of notes, some of it just like paragraphs, not necessarily that you wrote all that, but like in our conversations, me putting together like
6-point font,
what,
front and back pages.
what that was going to look like.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I feel like those are y'all approach character building and in a sense role playing in different ways, but not ironically, I guess, I don't know, but in ways that like complement one another.
And I've definitely learned to be like, okay, it doesn't need as much bulk up front. But I will say, yeah, just me being me, I do love creating a character. I do love having a backstory, but being a lot more looser on some of this things. Because even in that first campaign, there was like I like gave you a person that was from my background that you could use whenever. And he came up at the tail end. And it kind of felt almost like a throwaway. And I was like, I really didn't need that. Like it didn't need to be in there.
Did you remember who it was when it came up?
It took me a second. Yeah, like because he said the name and I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, oh
yeah, him.
Yeah, like that's right. So it's just like one of those funny things. And then I think I talked about this even in the last talk back. I can't stress the importance of a player character waiting to hear the DM's world and mechanics before you pitch your character. Like it's cool to have ones like in the back pocket, but really like just hearing all like, oh, like I have this awesome pirate. Oh, we're playing in a desert world. Like, oh, well, okay, I need to change that.
He's a pilot, so we open in the Underdark.
Sand pirates,
right?
Hear me out.
Sand pirate.
We can fix this. We can fix this.
But yeah, no, it's been a ton of fun.
So
playing.
Another just kind of counter to that, or exact opposite. The lady that saved Tam and gave him his first book about Hachiman and trained him and stuff. She didn't have a name for a while, or it changed a lot because I couldn't remember. So I didn't even write it down the first time. I was like, oh yeah, I've finally written it down on my character sheet. So anytime I have to reference it, I can look back
Be
and
consistent.
see what it is. It's Falaria.
Yeah. Good elf name.
Good, yeah. Anything that ends in an ia and has an L in there is generally, in my opinion, a good elf name.
Good girl elf name.
Good, very true. Very true.
A good boy elf name has to end with an L. Filariel would be the boy version of that.
Thanks, Tolkien.
Cool. So we can keep marching on with this recap. I feel like we spent like 6 episodes in the sewers.
Well, one of them was called a
Spent
slog through the
several,
sewers. So that
Which I didn't necessarily mean it to like spend that much time down there, but there was just some
fun,
some good arcs and some really great moments. Like the first time I think both of y'all were knocked down.
Oh my
happened in the sewers.
Oh my gosh!
By this random bounty hunter.
He didn't even have a name. I don't think we asked him his name, nor did he give it anyway.
The guy that stole the cauldron.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. No.
He's got a name now.
Now he does.
Yeah, you keep telling us that, man. We get it.
I don't think Tam cares anymore because when he realized that Bergen's Cauldron, when
that'd be a great name for a restaurant.
Or just that's what we're gonna call the Cauldron now. It's just Baldrin. When Bergen's Cauldron was no longer anything other than just I like it. Like, dude, get over it.
See, Lycan wants it mainly because he knocked us out, which doesn't happen often. And 2, that's a lot of gold. He's probably spent some of it, I'm assuming. I'm just waiting for Nathaniel to let us find him and be like, oh, he only has 5 gold on him.
Of course.
Like, oh, yeah, fun.
I brought my notebook, which my very brief notes, because doing the editing, I hear everything a million times, and I don't really need to remember as much. I literally opened it. We found 8,000 gold. We only took 3,000. And then later on, it's all gone. That was, we got none of it.
Nah, he spilled a good bit out, which we were.
I think y'all were able to get like.
I think so.
About at least 1,000 of it.
Yeah, that was. Re-listening to that episode too, it's just kind of like, man, like we rolled so
y'all
bad.
rolled
We did.
It could have been a completely different.
Well, and normally you roll bad. You didn't roll particularly good in that episode, but we just rolled terrible.
Yeah.
We were like so close too.
Yeah.
but both of us were just so low. And then I can't remember if he had like 2 or 3 attacks.
Well,
But
one
he downed us
time,
both in the same round, and I was like,
one time, and I'm
Man.
not. This happens in every home game. We skipped his turn,
Yeah.
and so
oh, that's right.
he did kind of get 2 turns back to back,
Right.
which is fine. But like that could have
Yeah.
alternate timeline been something different,
Right.
but at the same time, it was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure Tam would have been like, he's close to death. We can get him. I'll heal you in a minute.
It was interesting to see how you, as the DM, played that too when both of our characters went down, because there still was Bergen and Lady
Mhm.
Cassian and
Yep.
some of her troops, and then like I could see you smile about it a bit too, and you're just like, he got away. They went after him, but they couldn't catch him. They missed some shots.
I actually
they
rolled
took.
for them. Like I
Mhm.
rolled for it, and I
So,
mean,
so he says.
I rolled for them. They missed, and I also made the narrative decision that their priority would not be silencing every witness. Their priority would be like, we got to get out of here,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because they were being hunted by the other Admiralty forces. So I remember smiling because I remember being like, it's not often that you get a antagonist character that
given to you.
given to you that the player characters already hate. Like,
Yeah.
like I don't have to work to build
You
this
didn't have
guy
to kill
up.
anybody's animals. You didn't have to.
No.
I don't have to work to build this guy someone that y'all really want to take down. All I just have to be is like, you see him.
But you did add to it. You guys get back to the cauldron with gold. It's gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you didn't have to do that one. Yeah, like that was. We tried hiding
You
it.
didn't have to take it.
Yeah, and then getting out of there was kind of a mad
It's what my
dash.
non-player character would have done.
There were lots of things that were in editing it and in listening back to it. It maybe doesn't come across how anxious I was, but so much of that stuff, having to get everybody out, having to try to be quiet. I'm trying to think of everything I can, ways to give us advantage on these checks,
Right.
ways that I can, because me as a person is constantly what-ifing. I've yet to really play a character out of my comfort zone or out of somebody that I can really identify with
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. And so the whole time I'm going, oh no, if this happens, this is going to be bad. If that happens, this is going to be bad. So that's why a lot of Tam's like downtime stuff is just him thinking to himself, okay, this is what's next. We could do this, if that, and then we'll go over here. Okay. He has contingencies upon contingencies because that's easy for me to
Yeah,
roleplay.
yeah.
Nice.
If this doesn't work, we'll do this. And if that doesn't work, I'll be very angry, but we'll do this.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, do y'all have any questions for me about that arc
The
or
sewers specifically.
sewers?
No, I don't.
Was there any way for us to get? Because there was a city like across a ravine, essentially, is how it was
yeah.
described to us.
Yeah.
Because everything ended up being on the side we were already on,
Mhm.
thankfully. But I was a little curious because I think at one point we were thinking about like she's probably over there.
Yeah.
We might need to go over to this city, and we don't know how long we'll be there. And so I'm a little curious. Was that even an actual option for us to get over there and explore?
Yes, it
Okay.
was. I don't have it on me, but I had a pretty well drawn out map of the tunnels in the sewers, and there are
Cool.
multiple levels, and there are plenty of things that y'all didn't stumble across, plenty of enemies that y'all didn't encounters that y'all didn't face.
Yeah.
I think y'all uncovered some of the most interesting ones, like that shrine to the evil god.
That started the fight.
yeah.
Started the whole fight.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for that to come back up again. I did some world building on that sort of power this morning, actually.
Well, you even referenced at one point that you had built out the like saints of Hachiman and like
Yeah.
what they've done. When you had referenced that, I was like, oh, I guess like Tam's whole, divinity and gods, and this might become a much bigger line down the line and stuff like that. So I'm kind of interested. And even the supposed what's it? Why can't I think of what's a glaive that like
Oh.
just got is supposedly a leftover
a relic.
weapon of one of the champions. So
Yeah, so it's funny now both of you have a connection with one of the gods of this setting.
Oh,
true.
yeah.
Hachiman and
Uh-huh.
the god of
Nema?
warfare and
Oh, yeah.
warriors, and Nema, the Lady of Storms
The
Yeah.
goddess of parties.
and parties. Yeah.
I rolled so well. I was so happy with myself.
We rolled so good in all the garbage of that episode.
Yeah, no fighting,
which was great. That's
Yeah.
that is, in my opinion, that is some of the best D&D, when your stupidity is rewarded with ridiculous rolls and you can just die laughing at each other. Oh my gosh.
No, it's
that
right.
is-
I'm still scared a little bit though sometimes to be like, I don't think this is a good idea, but like I'm gonna do it.
I'm gonna roll good.
So like even after that happened, when I was like, I'm gonna go sleep with Ocean, I was like, this isn't a good idea, like at all.
Well,
And
Nathaniel-
my DM very well could be like, something happens to you, you know. But
Well, Nathaniel does a good job of asking leading questions, and you're not railroading us or handholding. You know, you'll ask questions like, "Are you tying off? Or are you just floating there?" Because you asked that one.
Yep.
And so then Michael, I'll tie off. I've got some rope. I'll tie off. And
well, I was actually I had already thought about it, but I was going back and forth. But then once he asked, I was like, yep, I'm tying off.
definitely
then.
tying off.
I was
yeah.
already 50-50, but because you asked, now I'm like, yeah.
Not. We talk a lot about hand waving. Can we just say I tied off? Well, that was kind of an important
Yeah,
question you
yeah.
didn't answer the first time.
Well,
Okay, a question about the glaive. Because we had talked before, you weren't, even though it was a glaive by flavor, because mechanically we weren't playing on a map, which is what we've done. It wasn't
theater
a,
of
it,
the mind.
it wasn't a glaive to start, right? Is it now a glaive?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because originally I was just like, so one of the big draws to me specifically with the way that I was trying to build Lycan out originally was like, I thought it was cool to have a weapon with reach to it, with some length to it, because I hadn't played one like a strict kind of fighter frontliner that also has reach with their weapon and everything.
Yeah.
But with us playing Theater of the Mind, honestly, it felt like it just didn't come into play that often. Because also when you're playing Theater of the Mind, it's a little hard to be like, well, I stop, 15 feet away and take a swing and stuff like that. So checking with Nathaniel, I made sure it was okay. Like, hey, could we flavor saying I have a glaive? But really, it's a rapier, and then I could get a slight plus to AC and everything.
Is yours a rapier?
It was initially. Now it's
That's funny.
100% a glaive.
Because my
that I use
katana has
strength
been a
for.
rapier the whole time.
Yeah.
Are
Like-
you using it dex or strength?
That's why it was a rapier, because I was using it as a dex.
Okay,
initially.
because here's the crunchy part.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Okay, 'cause
exactly.
mine's definitely rapier for the dex as well.
Yeah, but now it's switched, so it's all strength. Which Lycan doesn't have a horrible strength, but I think if you were to look at like other just straight barbarian players,
Yeah.
Lycan's nothing to write home about. So, because we also have the Cloud Cutter sword, which I'm also kind of interested in because I don't know if you guys caught it, but at one point Nathaniel was like, "Oh, it's just a +1 for now," and I was like, "That for now is
now.
interesting. That's like okay."
We listen.
So I am curious about that one still, but yeah, now I've lost 1 AC because it would have dropped 2, but then I picked up that ring from the Gilded
okay,
Lady, so
uh-huh.
I'm losing an AC but getting a lot more damage with my swings now.
Gotcha.
I'll just say this. I love the archetype, sometimes in just general fantasy, but also in plenty of D&D campaigns I've played in or listened to, of the magical item that grows in power and in abilities as the campaign goes on.
So much fun.
Yep.
So much fun.
Yeah. And so we got out of the sewers, made a mad dash back to the boat,
Mm-hmm.
and then decided to hightail it to someone help.
The village with the mind worms. of
Yeah, the
Vostra.
mind worms.
You weren't hightailing it there, actually. You were going there because Lady Cassian
That was one
had
of the.
tasked you to basically uncover the mystery behind it. The governor of Hermida had been, there was some fishy stuff going on. And so you guys were like, we need to go investigate. Maybe we can get dirt on him. And
There's so many good episode names coming up now that it's like, oh man, the mystery of the mines
Yeah.
instead of whatever I put on there. I don't know what it was.
Go at it, man. I don't think anyone's paying that much attention.
I think it was investigation and uncertainty.
Maybe, yeah.
Or hints and revelations, possibly. I don't know.
Yeah, man. Mind worms. What's wrong with you?
This is a kid's
Yeah,
podcast.
didn't like that. Ben didn't like that.
I think Ben was affected a lot more than I was, but I was still just like, this isn't. There's some movie. Ben, maybe you could help.
Well, neither of y'all have read Animorphs, right?
Read it?
I've read
No.
some of Animorphs.
There was a show on Nickelodeon. It was garbage. The books ran forever. I stopped.
There's like a million.
It was like a million of them. I stopped maybe a third of the way through, apparently, and I had like 25 of these books. It was a lot.
Yeah.
The whole premise was these worms get in your head
Mhm.
and control. That is the alien invasion. Yerks are getting in your ear, and it was.
Well, it also reminded me of a it
The
was an
Thing.
older
Is that what you're thinking
movie.
about with Kurt Russell?
Elijah Wood was in it.
The faculty.
Was that like at a high school and
Yes.
stuff, and they had to snort salt
They had to, when they have to.
to check, like, hey,
Uh-huh.
are you infested? And they had
and
to.
then they all stand.
I
in the
knew you would
sprinklers.
know what
Oh
it
yeah. Oh
was.
yeah. It's amazing. That is one of those amazingly bad, but there are some really good parts
Yeah.
in it kinds of movies.
It's a good recall movie too, because
Mhm.
even the way that you did it. If Nathaniel, if you haven't watched it, maybe you should go check it out.
I
'Cause
haven't seen it.
it just reminded me so much of what you were doing, because like the whole premise of that movie was some alien things were infesting people. You couldn't tell that they were like it, but their weakness was salt. And
Mm.
somehow they figured that out, and they're like, hey, before we talk to anyone, we have to make them snort a little bit of salt to see if they react or not. And so that reminded me with like the fire once we figured it out. I was like, this feels so much like that.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah, I feel like for me the biggest immediate inspirations were there. I mean, there are things in D&D lore that I'm drawing inspiration from. That's all I'll say about the in D&D lore stuff. But in particular, there was an episode of X-Files, which I loved
My
X-Files.
sister loves
Scared me
love
just enough when I was little, and again, I'm enough older than
Yeah.
y'all. So when it was anyway, nope, did not.
See,
do
it's funny
X-Files.
'cause,
I could
like,
probably do it now, but
I only
mm-mm.
watched X-Files as an adult going back.
Yeah,
And so now it's like, oh, it's like cheesy 90s like effects. It's not really scary.
right.
But there's this episode where there's like an Antarctic research station that uncovers something in the ice. And I think it's based on the movie The
I'll say,
Thing.
so it's literally the thing.
It's literally
then.
The Thing. But it's different in that like the good guys make it out, right? But it's similar
Spoilers
to
for the thing.
that was, I feel like, one of the biggest inspirations for me. And I definitely wanted to give you guys something that was like more weird and mysterious.
Well, the scariest part to me was that I think it really rattled me, or began to lean into really not liking it when they fell from the ceiling onto you. Again, and some of it's probably my Animorphs previous experience where they tended to trick people into coming. They had a front that was a borderline cult thing, community center / whatever, and they would eventually the bad people would hold you down and the thing would slither into your ear.
Yeah.
The fact that you could just skip that step and it could just get on you. Nope. Did not like.
Mhm.
It's like, cover your ears.
Well, and then we fought the flying one, which actually reminded me of bats from like StarCraft. Love StarCraft, but that wasn't the Elder, right? Because he alluded to it, and so I'm like, what? Because I was still expecting us to have to fight an Elder before
to
we
fight
got out,
another one.
and then we just didn't. So I'm just like, in my mind, I'm like, where are these Elders at?
It's funny because we were talking about doing this episode and thinking back, even in game when we've played, and some of it's because there's been some bigger chunks where we haven't played between those arcs and sessions. The mind worms are almost completely forgotten in my head. Not because it's bad writing or anything. It's just like, oh yeah, this next thing that Tam is very focused on, there's a lot of stuff we haven't finished. There was some weird portal looking thing that's just on a boat somewhere.
Yeah, there was a lot of we left there having a lot of question
There's
marks.
a lot of loose ends
that
in
just didn't get.
And may never get answered. That's
Yeah.
the beauty of D&D. That's one of the fun things.
Oh, we keep playing long enough. Some of it will definitely get answered.
Well, that's part of it too. Is that Nathaniel and I have talked a lot about. There are certain things that you write as a DM. It doesn't matter if the players engage with them or not. It's coming back. Yeah. Or it may, I worked this hard. You're getting the dragon later. Maybe it's a different level dragon, but it's the same stinking one you should have seen before.
I mean, I think I'll say y'all remember the first campaign that we played. There were threads from the first few sessions that related to like the last session.
Oh yeah.
You mean like how we went to go check out to see this missing wizard, and he was just gone. And then at the tail end, he ended up being the big bad.
He was the
whole
big guy
time.
the whole time.
Yeah,
and
he
was
also
just-
made us save him, and he snuck out.
He
in the
was a
middle of the night.
lovable, crazy
Yeah.
old man. Yeah.
Yeah. I know our listeners don't care about this. We do.
Oh man, I really
And was
love
and
D&D.
was perpetrating a borderline genocide of Michael's people. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, it was a good time. It was so fun. And the funny thing was, we played with a couple other friends in that first one, and Anya I think was like going to the bathroom, and when she came back, she's like, "No one spent the night with him. Like you guys just let him keep that item and just let him have his own room," and we all were just like, "Yeah." And she's like, "If I was still here, I would have been like, someone should stay with him," and we're like, "Well, you weren't."
Curse this bladder.
That's another piece of real advice. If you have a suspicious NPC, maybe go to the bathroom before you start playing D&D.
The thing that both of you do that I just have to deal with as a player character, you both like making us really like NPCs and then using them to betray us.
Stabbed in the
You guys are big fans
Okay.
of like, don't okay me.
Do that one time.
I've played in both campaigns.
Well, which one are you talking about for Nathaniel?
Oh, I mean, well, his whole like player character during the little arc.
Well, that was
Oh.
you can blame that one on me because I was like, Nathaniel, do you want to betray them at the end of this?
Mhm.
He said, uh-huh.
Also, the friendly wizard we just talked about that also betrayed us. I'm sure there were more in that first campaign that I'm forgetting.
It's just so in our first campaign, Ben DM'd a mini arc for us, and I played a drow who ended up betraying the party at the end. The whole rest of the party really was attached to this character.
Even after he betrayed y'all. That was the thing that was fun for me because for me to DM, my character got summoned away to do something, so Jonas wasn't
Yep.
around. And so it was even funnier for me as having DM'd that, but then also getting to play my character who was like, who is this guy? Why are you all smirking when you talk to this weirdo in a ring? What is going on here?
Yep. Yep.
oh man,
The everything to do with Lady Cassian has been
Mhm.
very cool because as I was looking back at notes, it was like, oh yeah, she has the ring to control one of those battalions of, deathless mind control drone soldiers.
yep.
Well, she has like the ring that we
No,
now
no.
have. No?
Yes.
Yeah,
so
that's
the,
what I'm
the
talking
only
about.
ring
She had
that
the ring.
yes,
VA
she has
ring.
given it to y'all for safekeeping.
But that was her MacGuffin. That was what she was bringing to
She's
Yeah,
bringing
yeah.
to the
thing.
ambassador.
It wasn't something that we found 15 sessions in
Mhm.
that we had to work our way into. That was on the table from the get-go.
Mhm.
And then helping her is how we met the mind worms, how we found out about this portal door that's been shipped off to somewhere. She's helping us ferment civil war within the Admiralty, which is not monolithic. I was like, okay.
Yeah, that was interesting to find out. Was it at the mines as well? I haven't got back to this part of the re-listen where we got Lieutenant Thistlecorp or
No, Thistlecourt was back in Hormida. We found
He was
him.
in the mirror.
He was in the
prison,
mirror prison.
which was
in the dungeon in Hermida of
When
the
we
governors.
went back to Hormida,
Back
and we
through
met
the sewers.
That's
Vincent
right.
came with us
That's
to
right.
do that.
Sewers
Okay.
Part 2.
Yes.
Sewers Part 2. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was in the mines that y'all rescued Vincent and Saburo Yoshida, the naval intelligence officer who
Kronk.
yes.
Tam did not like.
Oh man. Yeah, y'all had the sort of other party that y'all found who were
Yes.
controlled by the mind
Oh,
worms
I did
as
not
well.
trust them at all from the get-go. And then for them to only have been controlled late in the session almost made it worse for me because I felt bad for having distrusted them so early on.
Was it the Cloud Elf?
No, I think it was just the fact like, this may be metagaming. Tam, I don't think acted out of character, but it's like, why is there another adventuring party
Yeah.
in this nothing town?
Yeah.
It's just there's no reason for other people to have things going on in their lives. That's sociopath behavior, Tam. Shut up.
That's not very trustworthy, Tam.
So good.
Ah.
So you guys rescued Thistle Court.
But we left the worms and then went back to Hermida to get
Yep.
him.
Yes, so
And then that's when we had to get out of Dodge quick.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you actually eradicated the worms in Vosra. Like there are no, as far as y'all are aware, there are no more mind worms
In Vosra.
in Vosra, in the village that y'all saved, essentially. With one of my favorite NPCs, Araxis Coldclaw, the tiefling priest of Nema.
Mhm.
Oh, I have to ask you this, Nathaniel.
Yeah.
Something adjacent. Have you read The Dark Tower by Stephen King? Have you read those books?
I've read the first one,
Okay.
The Gunslinger.
That's one of the better ones, in my opinion. People can sound off on me if they want.
Yeah.
But anyway, read a
You
lot
can
of
also
Stephen King.
comment your favorite book and Ben will get back.
I'll get back to you on that. There is a ton of things that you mentioned almost just offhandedly that were described very vividly in that series
Oh, yeah.
that were perfect. Like the way that the little pencil pusher guy on the dock,
Yeah.
you described it as basically he couldn't his personality was pushing through. He couldn't not dictate what was, or not record what was on this ship.
Yeah.
Very, very visceral imagination, just instant recollections of things in those books.
Okay.
And it made it so much more scary for me. Not because the thing in the book was scary or even that thing was scary, but it's like, ooh, this happened in something else, and that's bad.
Yeah.
So it was fun
Yeah.
to just be like, don't like that.
Oh, man.
Bad things happen when people scribble notes on pages.
Yeah.
Nope. Mm-mm.
I definitely wanted it to be that whole arc. I'm glad it came across as a little eerie,
Yep.
a little creepy, not like full out horror.
No.
But like, weird,
Yeah.
eerie, creepy.
It's
That's
like
what I wanted.
it's a classic trope to have a whole village.
Yeah.
They're slowly being taken over,
One
and
of
they're gonna
us, one of
stop
us.
you and come after you, and don't know who you can trust and who you can't. Like that was that
When the
definitely
dude-
added to the like tension. And
When the dude
eeriness.
got back ahead of us somehow,
Mhm.
and we didn't press it because it didn't matter, but the whole time we're both going, how did he get up there?
Mhm.
We left him, and now he's here. Can they teleport if they have worms? We don't know.
Might just know the shortcuts.
That's
in
true.
the area.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's much more reasonable.
And then when we got to the dungeon back after leaving that and all, the whole breaking the mirrors and the like safety precaution of the what was it, a flame
The
Fire
elemental.
that was just cool.
Mhm.
That was fun to play. And again, my natural nature is I'm gonna keep breaking more mirrors before we're done killing
Well,
this
see,
thing.
the thing that
And I
was,
thought I was like, Ben doesn't like this, but I'm like, I'm gonna keep breaking.
well, that's the engineer in me. It's like, okay, we can definitely break the mirrors. Now is not the time to break the mirrors because what if something horrible comes out and tries to eat us?
Anything can be in that mirror.
Anything could be in
Another
there.
fire elemental.
You don't know.
No.
Just wait. We'll break them, I promise.
Oh, man.
I thought that was the as I think back thus far, the instance where Tam did not see any reason to go get rid of those skeletons that were chained to the oars in like the first or second episode, and then Lycan points out very intelligently, what if somebody else comes down and can control these things? Tam immediately flips the switch like, oh, the idea makes sense. Then by all means, let's do it.
Yeah.
That is Tam in a nutshell, to a T, of what are you doing? Oh, that's a good reason. Why are you not doing it better?
Yeah.
Let's go. Okay, come on.
Yeah.
Do y'all have any questions? I guess just about any of this stuff up to. I feel like we're pretty much up to Thistle Court, and I mean we can talk about the escape from Hermida and y'all's adventures on the sea and getting to Fort Martalion. But is there any behind the screen things that y'all want to know?
So you have a table of ship names that you
Yes.
roll on.
Yep.
What other innocuous tables do you have?
Mostly still ship names.
Still ship names.
I'm working on building it out. So I have ship names for the Admiralty,
Okay.
for merchant ships,
Oh my goodness.
for pirate ships. Eventually, I'm going to come up with ship names for some of the other countries.
Well, and then you also the merchant ship that took the door away was the Shallow Grave.
Yes.
So that's a merchant ship name.
Well, and
What
also
are the pirate ship names?
also I guess was it a table for the random encounters? Because I if I remember correctly, I think I rolled a natural 20 for the Gilded Lady,
Yeah.
right?
You rolled really high. I can't remember if it was either one. It was great
Yes.
because you started grinning. It was great. That
Yeah.
was that was our last session together, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Mhm.
Because that was one
In
where
person, yeah.
Michael's like, "Oh, you're grinning. What do you like? This is gonna be good."
Yeah, so that's on a different sheet. So if I have, typically the way that I organize it is I make a separate Google Doc for every session,
Mm.
and at the top I'll type out a recap, and then I'll immediately under that usually make a table of random encounters that are appropriate to that session. So
okay.
like, oh, y'all are like in the middle of the ocean. I made up a random table a table for random encounters that would be in the ocean,
Right.
And that way, like, if we're at post recap immediately in a place where we need to do the like a random encounter or something, I just have y'all go with that, and then immediately under that usually I have like a a proto initiative like outline. I have every character that I'm like, okay, this character might be have to soon be in an initiative order, and then after that I'll like copy paste. Okay, here's a bunch of general lore about the region, the world. Here's some bullet points of like things I might I might think might happen
that
during
may be
this
more
session.
likely to be spoken about this
Yeah.
time, right?
So for that there was like, I don't know, dire sharks or a storm. I have like a storm random encounter with like skill checks to like weather the storm. That has been locked and loaded that y'all have just not
haven't rolled on it yet.
rolled on it. There are other sea monster type things, encountering a pirate ship, encountering an admiral ship, encountering a merchant ship.
Right.
Like these are all
things that may or may
could
not happen.
Some of it's like more like flavor and harmless, like, oh, there's like a school of flying fish that
Something else to describe for
Yeah.
5 minutes and for us to enjoy for
Yeah.
5 minutes.
I think my only other question for that arc was when we were like getting out and they were trying to close the barricade and coming after us and everything. And we might have talked about it in the across the table with us, but I just remember I was like, oh, I'm rolling really well. Like we're dodging, we're speeding up, all this stuff. And then
we got
hit
one
once.
time.
Yeah.
And I'm
Oh,
pretty
no.
sure it took like half of what we
It
had.
was
And
bad.
so I don't know if you rolled well,
Yeah.
but also I was just kind of like, okay, we have one, maybe two if we're really lucky at most. Which like kind of threw me because I was like, oh, okay, like we're almost out of here. We can take one hit. It's not a big deal. Oh, maybe we can't.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I got a
Rocks
little
thrown, everyone dies.
I know. So I got a little curious about like if we had taken, I guess, enough damage, because I really think maybe one more hit is all we could have taken.
Yeah.
Would we have just like woken up in jail in Hermita? Would we be rolling new characters? Like to what
No.
degree?
I mean, I think I don't know. It's hard to say without being in the situation and seeing exactly how the dice roll.
Yeah.
I had rough ideas of they might catch up to you, try to board you. If they really like damage the White Wake enough and it's quote unquote sinking. I mean, I think y'all have the ability to like shrink it down to like an amulet size and like take it with you. So you could have done that and tried to swim away.
Our model's broken.
There might have been some kind of
That would have been so sad. Can you imagine that?
I'd be bummed.
Our ship is sinking and we shrink it.
And we have
Something
to
about that
swim
makes
away.
it so much sadder to me.
Yeah.
Even if we still have it, this broken toy of our boat. Can you fix it?
Yeah, essentially, I think there would have been a battle. I think there would have been a fight before y'all would have had to wake up in jail.
Question for you, Michael.
Yeah.
Do you have a backup character yet? Because
For
I still
this
don't.
campaign,
I
have an idea right now, and
it's a sand elf.
It's a sand elf.
Eulith's brother.
Jolith.
long lost. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the sand elf would be a lot of fun.
Because I have nothing.
Yeah.
I not really. I think I would probably just go more just fully up front and probably do just like a fighter or something like that.
Yeah.
But no, I don't have it.
Yeah, I think it will win an if, mostly if, never win, Nathaniel. It will just be where we are and how we've played. Because, you don't ever want to replace your character with, oh yeah, this is Jam, high elf cleric of Spachimon, the god of pots and pans, spaghetti. That's fine, but that would just be weird.
Yeah. I feel like there are several countries that y'all might come across that y'all would be like, oh, I would love to have a character from this like part.
I think at this point for me, it would come down more to if you've done a voice that I liked,
Yeah.
it would be more along the lines of, ooh, that person talked like this. I like that voice. I'm going to do, now I'm a pirate character because I get to talk like this the whole campaign now. I'm a pirate druid because that's what fits well with the party, and I like this voice.
That's a sick idea, honestly.
You keep the boat safe.
Like
by
Circle of
keeping-
the Ocean or whatever
There you
it's
go.
called.
Or just, I
like,
talk to the dolphins and I keep them around the boat.
Yeah.
like an aquatic druid.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if we're just like joking around and you might go like cleric or something, I might go like paladin then. I've never done one before.
Ooh, it's fun.
Paladins
It's
are so fun.
very fun.
Yeah, I go back and forth. I think to me, for some reason, looking at them, they look like a little more finicky to me. And I'm like, like maybe one day.
Jonas was a barbarian paladin multiclass. Having played that multiclass with paladin and now playing cleric, I feel like cleric is more finicky because there's a little I've never played a full caster before. I've played a lot of half casters or multicasters. So there's never the full caster nuance of can't just wait in there and hit it with a stick. There's a lot more thinking.
Yeah.
Or, well, not like a lot more, like only idiots play marshals or whatever, but
Sometimes the choices are overwhelming with a full
well, not even
caster.
that, but sometimes I was thinking about it because Nathaniel had asked, is there any magic items you might be interested in having at some point in the campaign? And me, again, being a blank page, I'm like, no, I'm good. Make my wisdom go up. It's fine. But I was thinking about, like, man, because me as a player and Tam are learning to stay back.
Mm-hmm.
Toll the Dead's a great cantrip. 1d12 if they're hurt, but you don't get to add any modifiers to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anything that you can add modifiers to is fun. There's always that guaranteed damage. My strength is good. I'm always going to add 3.
Yep.
So even if I roll a 1, I get a 4. If I roll bad on Toll the Dead, it's just 1.
Yep.
That's it. No fallback. So I think with casters, sometimes that's what I'm noticing more and more is that if you're somewhat more pigeonholed into like, okay, yeah, at this point, attacking is not going to be as viable as magic, and I'm very conservative with spell slots. That's probably just me as a player. It's very hard for me to feel like I'm really helping the team.
Yeah.
I'm just going to use another cantrip. So paladins, I felt like, sorry to bring that back, wasn't just a rant. Paladins, because they were often still very powerful frontline fighters, it felt to me like there was more of a fallback, and smites are just so good.
Yeah.
They're just so good.
Critting on a smite.
Yes.
Besides like some crazy 9th level wizard spells, critting on a smite as a paladin is one of the it might be I don't know all the math. It feels like the way to do the most amount of damage on one hit.
Well, especially because you can add it after you crit.
You can decide.
You're like, oh, I crit. Yeah, I'm gonna do a smite.
I'm gonna do a 3rd level smite on
on an evil creature, so I already add extra d8. Yeah.
I feel like clerics do lend themselves to being upfront a little bit more. I think you might feel a little bit more pigeonholed because there's just 2 of us, right? And so I'm like, if there was a 3rd, it might flow a little better. And also, you're the only real healer. Although I guess Bergen has a little bit.
I'm pretty sure Bergen has healed us more than I have at this
you're
point.
probably right, honestly.
I think a lot of it is just that I'm probably too conservative with my spells. I need to be better at just like, we're gonna burn it, and then eventually I'll just be like, I'm sorry, death by cantrips is all we got today.
Yeah.
And concentration is difficult. So having to have things, I want to be helpful, but if I'm up there bonking people, I'm going to get hit and going to have to roll concentration more. And so that's like, I'm going to cast Aid or Bless. One turn later, I got hit and I rolled a 2 on my con save.
Right.
Womp womp. There that goes.
I will say I'm looking forward to whenever we level up again because I really need Eldritch Blast. I got no range right now. Well, I guess I got 15 feet or 10 feet or whatever, but
it's a really long glaive.
Yeah. I know. Even when the like water drake thing was at us, I was like, "How far is he?" And he's like 20 feet up in the sky. I was like, "I can't get to him." I guess I'll do some prep work down here and get closer.
Intimidate him.
I asked Ben this question the other day: if you could get one magic item, or like have a magic item that had a certain effect, like buff charisma, allow me to teleport, what would you want? Not necessarily like give me a immovable rod.
I want
or
a vorpal sword.
But like what would you be interested in?
Because mine would be just something to buff wisdom.
Yeah.
Or anything to help with spell stuff, or something that I could maybe add modifiers to cantrips for that same mental thing of like, it make me feel a little better if I could add a +3.
Yeah, I think trying to be the frontline fighter in this campaign, I've helped myself a lot in taking the warlock.
Oh, where you get healed for max all the time? That is so good.
Yeah, that's really good.
Doing the pack of chains and then I forget what the little extra warlock thing's called that I had to take to do that.
With your friend Robert.
Yeah, Robert. And I go back and forth because I really like him, but I'm like, I feel like it'd be helpful if you're in a different form, but I don't know if you're okay with that or not. It's so funny how you've made him so opposite to Lycan. Like, he's like, oh, spreadsheets and money, and yes, I love the logistical administrative
actuary
work.
tables. With your familiar, if he gets damaged, do you find familiar him again? What happens if Crobert? Oh, okay, so you have find familiar now. Oh, nice.
That's one of the things that comes with the Pact of the Chains. You like automatically know it and can cast it as a ritual.
Okay, cool.
And so whenever he goes away,
and I don't think you need any material components for that version of it, because as a wizard,
you have to,
in our home game,
it's expensive.
It's like 50 gold to bring back familiar.
Well, because I was thinking, as soon as you said, I don't, maybe a different form, I was like, no, just pick him up and throw him at somebody's face.
Yeah,
lobster in the face.
Which like I forget what stat block he has. It's like imp or something. So he does have some like crazy stuff to where like he can go invisible. And he has a sting that like
There's
they would have to roll for,
that he
and then
tried
they're like
once.
poisoned and stuff like that. So he has some like honestly pretty decent stuff, but I'm using him as a added healer essentially, just being like, what item? So I think oftentimes I think of now that I think I'm gonna lean into two-handed stuff. Strength would definitely be helpful.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna get more magic stuff as well, like just with the warlock one I'm picking and the barbarian I'm picking. But I think I honestly just really love the random magic stuff that we get, because I in my mind personally, I get really finicky with thinking like, how can I make this useful, or how can I help in like a social situation with this? Which I don't know if I've mentioned on this podcast or anything. I know I've told you both individually before. In our first campaign, I got a pot of deliciousness that I just loved. It literally, the only function of it was any food you put into it, it becomes delicious. You could put, I think at one point Nathaniel had described like, you put oatmeal in it, and by the time you're done stirring it and cooking it in there, somehow like maple syrup and berries and nuts, and it's just, all this stuff. And I liked using that as like a social cue to like win favor with like giants or elves or refugees and stuff. And so I think oftentimes I have more fun with just the random magic stuff that either of you guys
kind
have
of figuring out how to use it. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I think the pot of deliciousness was actually from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. It has a whole section on magic items that are not like, don't have any mechanical value.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I got that from. I can't remember if y'all looted it or you bought it.
I think I bought it. And I even remember when we got favor with the giants, because I think if I'm remembering correctly, I used it to essentially stir a giant's cup of ale. Like almost like on the end of a rope or on the end of a stick, to basically use as a giant stirring. And then he's like, oh, this is the best, ale I've ever tasted and stuff. But I just like the random stuff. I think when we very first started playing ever, I definitely was more in my head about like, oh, I need this kind of weapon, or like, oh, I can stack it with this one, blah, blah, blah. And I think now I'm at the place of it's just so much more fun to not ask for anything and just see what you get given.
Yeah, to not set expectations.
Because I mean, I could be wrong. I like to assume DMs as a whole, they're like, yeah, we want to give you guys fun stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, well,
the DMs at this table are.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of like, well, what fun stuff do you guys want to give? Because I'll figure out how to tinker with it later.
I think I definitely like giving more monkey's paw type items than Nathaniel does, because I like the idea of knowing up front, like, this is really good, but it can really mess you up.
There's a catch.
Yeah. I like that because it makes it more. I feel like it makes it more fun if the thing works or if it doesn't work in situations like that. You go to hit the guy with your shock lance or whatever, and it shocks you because you rolled a nat 1.
Yeah.
Dang it! You know,
Yeah.
usually it's fun. It can be very frustrating.
Yeah.
But so I like items like that too that have or cursed items are fun.
Yeah.
If the curse is weird or something, you know.
Man, I'm trying to think. I need to do more cursed items. That's not. It's,
No, you don't. Whoa, bring it back, y'all.
It's fine. It's
I haven't
fine.
done one in this campaign yet. All right, that'll be my homework. I'll go come up with
Yeah.
cursed items.
And I will say this, and apparently I might already have one, but I am also a fan of the items that can like scale with you throughout the campaign. And so now that you said this, yeah, you know what? Lycan actually slept in the ocean holding both weapons. So let's see what happens.
Holding Cloud Cutter.
They've
and
merged.
They
Heart.
merged into a battle axe.
You've
What is it?
got a spear.
What did I call it again? What's the glaive's name? Heart something.
Heart's blood, heart's drinker. I don't think I wrote that
Heart
one.
I don't
drinker, I
remember. I don't know if Ben kept this in or not because as you explained it, I was very confused because I was looking at the wrong notebook and I thought I had different items. So
Nope, that got out. You were smarter than you thought.
yeah. Okay, so now we're all the way up to getting out with Thistlecourt.
Yep.
Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Barnaby Thistlecourt.
Yeah, in case, just for people that listen to our show, Lycan's whole shtick, I have actually, it started off as a joke, and now I just think it's hilarious. Lycan will most likely never call anyone by the correct name a lot of the time. Part of that is his intelligence, I think, is like 8. But me, as an actual player, I take notes. I know what their actual names are. I'm not trying to slight my DM or anything like that. I don't want no one thinking that. But okay, so after we're getting out with him, then it's just essentially getting to her domain, which is a fort.
Martalian.
Yes, which you guys have made it to.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then we had a party and just hung out and met some new people.
I think that part's been pretty straightforward. That was a very good. I even wrote down in my notes hooks, and there's a bunch of little bullet points.
Yeah.
That was an excellent deep breath before the next stage. You didn't have to whack us over the head with a fire that was caused by the evil Silver Fleet again, because we're
Right.
going to go somewhere else. You didn't have to
Yeah.
drive us out of there.
Yeah.
But it was also a lot of fun to see, to be able to have small little character moments of Lycan picking on Vincent,
Yeah.
Lycan performing, wanting Tam to perform. Tam like, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
It is funny. I've laughed thinking because Tam is very quick to fall back into calling you captain and deferring to you in a lot of things, but also that's just habit. He doesn't. You're not the boss of me.
Yeah.
I think Lycan doesn't struggle with it at all.
I think Lycan, yeah, I think Lycan also, like, even with his own crew, because I think at one point Nathaniel kind of brought attention to it with Penelope, but was just kind of like, you keep giving these people a way out. You don't need to. And I think the way that in Lycan's head is he's never been in charge of anyone. I think even at the very beginning, how I described him is like a jack of many trades, but never actually put in charge of any one job, right? So like if you think of like a construction crew or something, he could be a foreman if he really had to be, but he's also done everything to build a house before,
He's been
but just
perfectly
never
content
ran
not
it.
being a foreman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think even now he doesn't really view himself of like, I'm in charge of these people, because also the way he's acted a lot of the times on ships, he's never been like a crewmate on a ship for like anything more than 2 years at a time, like a singular ship. And so it's just like, oh, I'm not in charge of these people. They're on my ship, yes, but if I really ask them to do something and they're like, no, I don't want to do that, he's not going to be
Forget you,
like,
man.
well, you have to. I'm going to, throw you overboard. Like, no, it's just like, okay, well, someone's got to do it.
Yeah.
So
Like-minded individuals.
yeah. And I will say, I mean, at the tail end of this, Nathaniel gave us so many hooks, a lot of different things we could do. But I do also like that you just like kind of gave us the freedom to like, you legitimately can do anything you want. And we kind of chose, I feel like if we really sat down and thought about it, maybe we should run down stuff with this ring and everything. But we're like, there's a vault ship and a like floating city that hasn't been searched in years.
Well, the floating city has the ring stuff on it, so that's paired. That's Ben's somewhat guilty conscience, a little bit like maybe we should have gone to the nerdy elf's history place first.
Yeah.
But there's stuff.
Yeah. There's things.
There's floating stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I think I have not struggled with it, but it's like, maybe we should have done that. It'll be next. It'll be next.
I feel like the mindset is like, okay, now clearly war is going to happen. She's sending stuff out to get people. We're going to go hopefully steal from bad people and then go find out some new secrets.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like I'm trying to convince myself like, no, this is fine. Like we should be doing this. Like, yeah.
It is going to be interesting when we really get into the problems that the Silver Fleet is causing people other than us. Like maybe we come upon one of the, a burned something or something that's they've passed through there. That's going to be hard for Tam because it's, he's enjoying this freedom. Let's go do what we want. And then, oh dear, there might be a greater good again.
Yep.
I have to go deal with this now. Tam and Ben can both feel guilty about, I got a +2 set of armor. Woohoo! They're all dead because of you. That if that moment comes, it's gonna be bad. If you were only here to marry that's gonna. Oh.
Well, I think you've already done a really good job of establishing Tam doesn't like bullies.
Mm-mm.
He doesn't like people being taken advantage of, people, using authority to do wrong and, upset common people. And so, whenever we come to potentially like actually facing a bit of the war, I feel like that's something that I'm interested to see how you play. Looking forward to that, just being like, how is Tam going to react to, hey, there are some really big bullies that we're up against right now.
I think with Tam, a lot of it has been so far, I think Tam has very specific kind of rules of engagement. And so you don't bring a gun to a knife fight. If you bring a knife to a knife fight, that's fine. If you bring a bigger knife to a knife fight, that's good for you because you're smart. And so some of the stuff where there's been conflict, Lycan has maybe escalated things beyond what Tam has thought was normal. So I think some of it with Tam is going to be him acknowledging that it's okay for Lycan to really let himself off the leash. Tam's going to really struggle with how far off the leash should we go now. 2 wrongs don't make a right is always very strong in Tam's mind, but up to a point. It's like, he's not against violence, but I'm going to go, like, this bully's beating up other people. Well, I'm going to go beat up that bully. He has no problem with that.
Yeah.
But for, him to think, I'll just go kill him and he'll stop. That's where Tam goes, whoa, 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 we have to give him a chance, blah, blah, blah. And so if something like that no longer works, it's going to be hard for Tam. Yeah. It's going to be bad. And not like the devil on his shoulders. I can almost imagine, like, see, this is why you kill them, or this is why we can't expect them to behave properly, or anything like that. So I think Tam is coming to that realization a little bit because he's got this freedom. We can go mess with them. Mm-hmm. If we steal stuff that doesn't hurt anybody, those kind of very legalistic, I didn't hit him, I just pushed him with my foot. Those kind of things.
Down a cliff.
Yeah. Those kind of things are good. Tam's not lying to himself, but that helps him think, oh, yeah, well, we haven't done crazy bad things yet.
Mm-hmm.
We're not making the situation worse. No, that's not us. And so I feel like that's probably Tam's next biggest thing, is coming to grips with what may or may not happen. Like, no, this is bad. Yeah. Or, there is no one right way of doing this. There's nobody gets out of this squeaky clean necessarily.
Yeah.
He's never had to deal with the fact that there is such a thing as a lesser of 2 evils.
Smuggling should be legal. So,
Then it wouldn't be smuggling.
It
would just be transport.
That was so funny. That is one of my favorite arguments that Tam has had to date, is when he's trying to explain to Bergen and Lycan that smuggling by default is like dodging taxes. And so if it was legal, it wouldn't be smuggling, like you just said. Then it's just transport. So you have to have laws against smuggling for it to be smuggling. Otherwise, it's not smuggling.
You're just moving stuff around.
That was...
What was the term? I'm pretty sure I wrote it down in my book. What was was it like renegade, like merchants?
Rogue merchants.
Rogue merchants.
That's what that should be.
When you were talking with Kevel about aggressive ship negotiations.
Well, that was with Kevel, and then most
purchasing.
recently it was rogue merchants.
Yeah.
Rogue That's merchants. Another, like, again, that may be a title, an episode title right there. Rogue merchants.
Yeah, it was fun for you to do that, and I'm like, Intelligent 8. Lycan is like, no, I don't think it works like
It's
that.
not. It's not.
But yeah, no, I'm excited for what's to come. And then yeah, it was just fun. Maybe it's not as exciting as combat and stuff, but it was definitely just fun to just kind of like hang out at the base, meet people, do the party thing. Getting to see a god, it's just like it's one of those things where it's just like that's just a fun little sprinkle that Nathaniel didn't have to do. But apparently this god's something in his world, and he's like, you know what? Yeah, that's gonna happen right here.
A nat 20.
Things happen.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, it was the perfect moment.
I will probably try to explore this more like in actual game, so we don't necessarily have to talk about it right now. But I am curious if so. My Patreon is essentially a child of the Red Wake,
Your patron.
which I think people know that, right? I'm pretty sure that's in one of the episodes.
Yes.
Is there any relation from the Red Wake to? Yeah, I didn't think you'd answer. All right, to Nima, the goddess of the seas.
Goddess of seas and storms.
I will say, yeah, he's not gonna answer. So I'm gonna keep moving. One of the other things that you kind of popped off recently was like the sea of monsters, the sea of storms at the edges and stuff. And it's funny because we've seen Nathaniel's map. We really need to throw it up on the Instagram. We actually do have an Instagram. There's nothing on it.
Oh, we
right
do now?
Oh yeah, there's
Ooh.
nothing currently on it, but we have
Ooh.
one. We need to put the map up because on the map it shows endless ice, endless sand, and like ocean on the edges of the maps and stuff. And so to hear like, oh, there's a sea of storms, sea of monsters, you've just never really heard of anyone coming back from that. I'm like, okay, so are we on a disc? Are we? What's? Are you telling us we can explore the great unknown to some degree here? Sea of storms and sea of winds.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very curious now.
Yeah, I don't think that Lycan's ever been on that side of the map. And I know Tam hasn't.
Nope.
I assume Lycan...
Tim has been nowhere.
I'm assuming, I guess in my mind, especially after seeing your map, Lycan has always just stayed within the Sea of Glass.
I think we've reached a good ending point.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for a while now.
Yeah, man.
I'm excited to play again with you guys.
Super enjoying playing with you guys.
Maybe we'll actually have some things up now that we have Instagram. What is that, Michael? Since you seem to be in the know about that.
Yeah, pander.
Quick. Is that what it is?
Give me a second.
Because we have to point them there. What is the at on it? We're terrible. I'm an elder millennial. Are you guys millennials too, technically?
Yeah.
By generation? Okay.
Pretty sure.
It's just at across the glass sea, all one word, lowercase.
There we
Yeah,
go.
there you go.
Nathaniel found it.
Yeah, thank you, Nathaniel. I'll figure it out. I'll get better, guys.
There's
Don't
one
worry.
post on it, which is our...
Nice.
The
We have
tile
it.
of
There
our-
will definitely be at least one more by
Yeah.
the
We'll
end
put
of
up
this.
some maps, but Nathaniel's got some a much more detailed, crazy
Yes,
map.
you can all see the maps that Nathaniel draws.
There's currents, there's wind directions.
And why I don't like to draw maps that compare to his because mine are
If
garbage.
you zoom up, if you zoom hard enough in the picture, you can actually see the maps of the cities that he's drawn even smaller in the continents.
That's what we'll do. We'll post some of your maps and one of mine, and it's just gonna be like, oh,
We'll throw up some pictures
can
of
you-
like when
can
we
you
started
find the
and
garbage?
kind of the setup we used to do when we're in person. We'll still do. It's a lot more sparingly now, but we'll still do it from time to time.
All right. Well, this has been fun.
Yeah, this has been a good time.
Yeah, well, good times. Thank you all for listening to Across the Table, a debrief of a live play 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons podcast from 3 nerdy dads who like to hang out. And,
Yep.
Even though a lot of our hangouts have to be online now. Anything else, Ben?
No, that's it.
All right.
I guess. Yeah, we're not gonna do fancy exit shenanigans on this.
Nah,
We'll
this
just
is-
be like, we'll just say bye.
It's across the glass table, man.
Glass table. Tables covered by blankets,
Yeah.
so they don't echo.
All right. Till next time.
See you guys
Yeah.
later.
Later. Bye-bye.